Mr. Speaker, he did not answer the question about the National Crime Agency. No answer to investigating dodgy Labour ministers, just as last week he didn't want an inquiry that might expose dodgy Labour councils. The Prime Minister knowingly appointed a convicted fraudster as his Transport Secretary. The anti-corruption minister he had full confidence in only days ago resigned yesterday in disgrace. He is negotiating a secret deal to surrender British territory, and taxpayers in this country will pay for the humiliation. Now it turns out his government may write a cheque to compensate Jerry Adams. This is shameful.
Gather around, because what you are about to see is a full-blown Commons clash, where Kemi Badenoch grills Keir Starmer so intensely and precisely that you can almost feel the pressure rising across the chamber, and the entire Treasury bench looking like every spreadsheet is under interrogation. The exchange unfolds in that classic Westminster atmosphere, where every word carries weight, every pause feels loaded, and every response is tested in real time under political fire. What makes this moment stand out is not just the questioning itself, but the sheer intensity behind it, as Badenoch pushes with a level of scrutiny that turns a routine exchange into a high-stakes political confrontation, forcing Starmer into a position where every answer has to be carefully measured, while the room watches every reaction closely.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, while borrowing costs hit levels not seen since Labour was last in government, I met business owners and their employees in Chesterfield. One of them told me that his business will not exist in 4 years' time because of this government's policies. It might not even exist next year. The Prime Minister may try to blame his inheritance or blame global factors, but why should anyone trust a word he says over the businesses who are saying again and again that his budget means fewer jobs, lower growth and higher borrowing costs?
Mr. Speaker, as she knows, the global economy is experiencing volatility and higher borrowing costs. That is why it was vital that we took the tough and right decisions in the budget to get our finances back in order. We had to deal with the £22 billion black hole that they left. We made difficult cuts, raised taxes to invest in health, public services and housing, vital to stability, vital to growth. And we've got an ironclad commitment to our fiscal rules. And she will welcome, no doubt, the inflation figures from this morning. But contrast that with the party opposite. They weren't brave enough in government to take those difficult decisions. They've opposed all of our measures to stabilise the economy and promote growth. They're back to the magic money tree. She wants all the benefits of the budget, but she can't say how she's going to pay for them. They haven't changed. They're still economic vandals and fantasists. Imagine where we'd be if they were still in charge.
In your opinion, in political debates like this, who has more impact? The one who speaks in a direct and simple way, or the one who relies on technical and detailed explanations? And please subscribe.
Mr. Speaker, just today, the British Retail Consortium says 2/3 of businesses will have to raise prices to cope with his tax hike. His Chancellor ignored all the warnings and ploughed ahead with an unprecedented borrowing spree, leaving all of us more vulnerable. Now we have businesses saying they will raise prices to cover his jobs tax. We have an energy policy that will drive up bills, and all the while we are spending more day to day on debt interest than we do on schools and universities. The Prime Minister refused to repeat his Chancellor's promise that she wouldn't come back for more. Will he now rule out any new tax rises this year?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we took the right and difficult decisions at the budget. Decisions that they did not have the courage to take, which left us in the mess in the first place. When it comes to tax, she knows very well the limits of what I can say from this dispatch box, but we have an ironclad commitment to our fiscal rules. We can't just tax our way out of the problems that they left us, which is why we put in place tough. They were howling at the spending decisions. They wouldn't take them. And we'll stick to those spending decisions. And our focus is absolutely on growth. But their record, they flatlined the economy. Their record, they flatlined the economy. Mini budget that crashed the economy. Worst cost of living crisis in living history. And they left a £22 billion black hole. Not taking lessons from them on the economy.
Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knows very well the OBR found no such black hole. And he talks about a budget 3 years ago. The borrowing costs last week are at a 27-year high for 30-year gilts. The Chancellor is apparently promising to be ruthless in reducing spending. Let me suggest something that he should cut. There is no way that we should be giving up British territory in Chagos. He is rushing a deal which will be disastrous and which will land taxpayers with a multi-billion-pound bill. Why does the Prime Minister think British people should pay to surrender something that is already ours?
Mr. Speaker, we inherited a situation where the long-term operation of a vital military base was under threat because of legal challenges. The negotiations were started under the last government. The then Foreign Secretary came to this House to say why he was starting negotiations and what he wanted to achieve. And he said the aim was, to quote, ensure the continued effective operation of the base. That is precisely what this deal has delivered.
Mr. Speaker, there is no one he can blame for this dud deal except himself. At the budget, Labour were congratulating themselves for having the first female Chancellor, instead of ensuring the country had someone actually qualified to do the job. The Prime Minister,
I want to hear. Sorry. I want to hear the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims he has full confidence in the Chancellor, but the markets clearly do not. Yesterday, the Chancellor repeated her promise to have just one budget per year to provide businesses with certainty. The talk in the City is that she can't meet her fiscal rules, and there will need to be an emergency budget. So does the Prime Minister stand by the Chancellor's commitment that there will be only one budget this year?
Prime Minister.
She'll be pleased to know the Chancellor will be in place for many, many years to come. She'll outstrip them. Mr. Speaker, if we all thought the politics was about cheap points, I could criticise their chancellors, but I don't have enough time to go through all of the chancellors that they had. We have one budget, that's what we're committed to, strong fiscal rules, and we'll stick to them, unlike the party opposite.
Mr. Speaker, at a time of turmoil in the markets, the Prime Minister was distracted by the crisis around the former City Minister. What does it tell us about his judgment that yesterday he said he was saddened that his close friend resigned? This was an anti-corruption minister under criminal investigation for corruption. Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner advising Bangladesh, said London properties gifted to the former City Minister may be proceeds of robbery. So, will the Prime Minister offer Bangladesh the full support of our National Crime Agency in ensuring that any properties bought with stolen funds are properly investigated?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the former City Minister referred herself the independent adviser. He found, as she well knows, there was no breach of the code. He knows that he found there was no wrongdoing, and the former minister fully cooperated. She referred herself a week ago Monday. I got the report yesterday, and she resigned yesterday afternoon. Compare that with the shadow foreign secretary, who breached the ministerial code. Her predecessor, Batu, ignored it. It was the advisor that then had to resign because he wasn't taken seriously, and she's now serving the leader of the opposition. What a contrast. Thank God the British public chucked them out.
Mr. Speaker, he did not answer the question about the National Crime Agency. No answer to investigating dodgy Labour ministers, just as last week he didn't want an inquiry that might expose dodgy Labour councils. The Prime Minister knowingly appointed a convicted fraudster as his Transport Secretary. The anti-corruption minister he had full confidence in only days ago resigned yesterday in disgrace. He is negotiating a secret deal to surrender British territory, and taxpayers in this country will pay for the humiliation. Now it turns out his government may write a cheque to compensate Jerry Adams. This is shameful. We left him the fastest growing economy in the G7. In just 6 months, under his leadership, it's been taxes up, borrowing up, mortgage rates up, and that's not all. Business confidence is down, jobs are down, growth is down. Can the country afford 4 more years of his terrible judgment?
Picture the scene right now as the chamber hums with energy, that low, constant buzz of anticipation rolling through the room like a kettle just before it boils over, with MPs leaning forward, some casually shuffling papers, while others already wear knowing smirks because they sense exactly where this is heading. As Badenoch rises, calm, composed, but carrying that unmistakable tone that signals she is fully prepared and someone is about to have a very long and uncomfortable afternoon. And she does not begin with theatrics, but with something far more powerful, real-world consequences tied to Chesterfield business owners, not abstract figures or distant projections, but real people facing the possibility that policies could wipe out their livelihoods within a year. And she lays it out with steady precision, building each point like carefully stacking evidence in front of a jury, until she delivers a simple but devastating question about why anyone should trust his words over the voices of businesses themselves. And at that moment, anyone familiar with these exchanges can already sense the pattern, as Starmer rises and responds with calm control and launches into what feels like a greatest hits compilation of government defenses, including global instability, tough decisions, fiscal responsibility, and the ever-familiar so-called black hole argument, a phrase that has become almost symbolic in these debates, repeated so often it feels like a mystery with no agreed ending. As he leans into it with talk of inherited problems, difficult choices, and massive financial gaps, presenting a structured and confident defense that on the surface sounds reassuring and controlled. But Badenoch is not there to let the script run uninterrupted, as she returns sharper than before, armed with fresh evidence from the British Retail Consortium, highlighting that 2/3 of businesses are raising prices, with taxes increasing costs and energy policies pushing bills higher, turning abstract claims into immediate realities affecting prices, jobs, and everyday life. And she presses further with a direct question about whether he will rule out new tax rises this year, a question that sounds simple but carries significant political weight because any answer risks consequences. And Starmer responds carefully, avoiding a direct commitment, and instead falling back on fiscal rules, long-term growth, and controlled messaging, while navigating each line like a carefully rehearsed path through a minefield. But Badenoch continues by challenging the credibility of the foundations of his argument, questioning the Office for Budget Responsibility and the so-called black hole claim, directly undermining a central pillar of his narrative. And she escalates further by pointing to borrowing costs at multi-decade highs and long-term guilt pressures, shifting the mood in the chamber as MPs begin to lean in more closely, sensing the stakes rising. And then she expands the attack across multiple issues, including Chagos sovereignty and taxpayer cost, framing it as a question of why the public should pay to give up something already considered theirs, while Starmer responds with legal framing, inherited negotiations, and continuity arguments. But the contrast becomes clear as technical explanations struggle against direct and emotional language. And the exchange escalates again as she raises concerns about confidence, markets, and the possibility of an emergency budget, asking whether there will be only one budget this year, a question that layered with implication, even if simple in form. And Starmer replies with confidence about long-term fiscal stability and strong rules, while also attempting political counterattacks, referencing previous administrations. But Badenoch remains relentless, moving into questions about ministerial conduct, investigations, and broader international implications, shifting the debate from pure economics into judgment and accountability, pressing repeatedly on unanswered points, including involvement with the National Crime Agency, where the absence of answers becomes part of the argument itself. And then she builds toward a rapid sequence of claims, covering appointments, resignations, costs, falling confidence, declining growth, and weakening jobs, stacking each point to create mounting pressure until she delivers a final piercing question about whether the country can afford several more years under his judgment. And at that moment, the exchange reaches its peak as what has been building throughout finally lands. And stepping back from the intensity, what becomes clear is that this is not just confrontation, but the essence of parliamentary democracy at its most dramatic, where questions and answers collide in real time, and narratives compete for dominance. And while it may feel theatrical and heightened, there are still real stakes underneath, shaping policy and public direction. And what makes it compelling is not chaos, but controlled intensity, where one side builds arguments carefully and the other responds with structured defense. And ultimately, what you are watching is strategy unfolding in real time, as both sides attempt not just to win the debate in the chamber, but to shape perception beyond it.